Hαίrete, friends. Welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves, and today we're going to be talking about some of the worst atrocities committed by womankind in the history of the ancient world. Generally, when we think about cruelty and violence in the ancient world, we think about and talk about men, understandably so, but women are not to be left behind. There are plenty of ladies in the ancient world that did some truly terrible things, and so we're going to be going through a list of things that I have compiled for you today. It's in no particular order, and if I've missed any of your favorites, please let the rest of us know in the comments. I'm going to start off with a lady named Phereetima. So she was a Greek woman who married the Cyrenian king Bottas III, who unfortunately died, leaving her a widow. But they had a son together who then also became king until he also died. He was murdered by the citizens of a city called Barca. She was understandably a little bit peeved about this situation, so she went off and formed allies and raised an army and came to attack this city. And there was a siege for a very long time. It wasn't really going one way or the other, but finally her army managed to lure out the citizens of this city, basically by promising them really favorable terms of surrender, and then obviously not following through on those. So they raise the city, they destroy it, and they take everybody captive. And then she is not satisfied with just this. She needs to wreak further revenge, and we're going to hear the details from the Greek historian Herodotus. Phereetima took the most guilty of the Barcaeans when they were delivered to her by the Persians and set them impaled round the top of the wall. She cut off the breasts of their women and planted them around the wall in like manner. As for the remnant of the Barcaeans, she bade the Persians take them as their booty, save as many as were of the house of Bottas and not accessory to the murder. To these she committed the governance of the city. Yikes, chopping off dem titties, that is a terrifying move, but also somehow surprisingly not unique. We have more than one story in the ancient world of a woman chopping off somebody else's tits. So that brings us to Amestris, who was a wife of Xerxes, and they have a very complicated, messed up family tree. So she's married to Xerxes, and together they have a son, and the son marries his cousin. She is the daughter of Xerxes' brother, so that's how that is related. And then he and his wife are married, and then the wife cheats on her husband by sleeping with her husband's father, Xerxes. And Amestris is very much not impressed by this, but she doesn't actually take it out on her son's wife. She thinks that the wife's mom kind of put her up to this and orchestrated everything, so that is on whom she decides to wreak her vengeance. And we're going to hear about this story again from Herodotus. Amestris sent for Xerxes' guards and used Meistes' wife very cruelly. She cut off the woman's breasts and threw them to the dogs, and her nose and ears and lips likewise, and cut out her tongue, and sent her home thus cruelly used. That one is just beyond awful. I don't really know what commentary I can give you for that one, so we're just going to recognize how awful that is and then move on to the next one, which is Roxanne, who was one of the wives of Alexander the Great, and her political machinations after his death. Now, Roxanne was with child, and on this account was held in honor among the Macedonians, but she was jealous of Statira, and therefore deceived her by a forged letter into coming where she was, and when she had got her there, slew her, together with her sister, threw their bodies into the well, and filled the well with earth, Perdiccas being privy to the deed and partner in it. Now, I left that bit about Perdiccas in there because of what follows directly after. Apparently, he had an assistant who was also done very dirty by a woman. For it was he who was at once in the greatest authority, dragging Aridaeus around after him to safeguard, as it were, the royal power. Aridaeus was Philip's son by an obscure and common woman named Phereetima and was deficient in intelligence owing to bodily disease. This, however, did not come upon him in the course of nature or of its own accord. Indeed, it is said that as a boy he displayed an exceedingly gifted and noble disposition, but afterwards Olympias gave him drugs which injured his body and ruined his mind. Olympias is a member of this very fucked up family, and I'm assuming that she felt threatened by the promise of this upcoming bastard and just cut him off at the knees. So again, a very tragic story. Finally, we're going to take a look at Tomyris, who is not a Greek. She is a queen of the Mazzagetae, who are an Iranian people in Scythia, and we know about her from Herodotus, who seems to be very impressed by her and her people because he tells us some great stories about them. So her situation basically is that she is a widow, and the Persians and King Cyrus are interested in taking over her territory. So first he tries to propose to her, to offer that she marry him, and she says, "You're just trying to incorporate my territory into your empire. I'm not interested, fuck off." So he says, okay, I guess we're going to do things the hard way. So he invades, and her son leads the troops out to meet the Persians, but the Persians do something kind of tricky. What they do is they leave out a whole feast that has lots of wine, and they leave it out for the Massagetan army to encounter. And apparently these people don't really have alcohol in their culture, so they're consuming all of this wine. They are just instantly incapacitated. They are completely out of it. And so the Persians are able to come in and kill most of them and take the remainder captive, including our Tomyris' son. And when she hears about this, she is very angry. And she says the Persians only won because they cheated, basically. And she sends a very angry letter, at least according to Herodotus, to the Persian king Cyrus. "Bloodthirsty Cyrus, be not uplifted by this that you have done. It is no matter for pride if the fruit of the vine, that fruit whereof you Persians drink even to madness, so that the wine passing into your bodies makes evil words to rise in a flood to your lips, has served you as a drug to master my son withal by guile and not in a fair fight. Now therefore take this word of good counsel from me. Give back my son and depart unpunished from this country. It is enough that you have done despite to a third part of the host of the Mazzagetae. If you will not do this, then I swear by the sun, the lord of the Mazzagetae, that for all you are so insatiate of blood, I will give you your fill thereof." So Cyrus, of course, refuses to surrender and retreat, and so they engage in battle yet again. And Herodotus says that this was one of the most tenacious battles that anyone has ever fought who wasn't Greek, at least. And it goes on for a long time, but finally the Persians lose and Cyrus is killed, and then Tomyris is able to fulfill that promise that she made in that letter. There fell Cyrus himself, having reigned 30 years in all, save one. Tomyris filled a skin with human blood and sought for Cyrus's body among the Persian dead. When she found it, she put his head into the skin and spoke these words of insult to the dead man. "Though I live and conquer thee, thou hast undone me, overcoming my son by guile. But even as I threatened, so will I do, and I give thee thy fill of blood." Many stories are related of Cyrus's death. This that I have told is the worthiest of credence. That is my favorite story of this video. Definitely very badass, very cool. And I like that Herodotus basically agrees with me. He says, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about how Cyrus died, but we're gonna go with this one. So that is just awesome. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Special thank you as always to subscribers and to Patreon members, and hope to see all of you again next week. Χαίρετε.